Welcome back, everyone, to Waking the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks. We hope you all enjoyed a lovely Thanksgiving weekend. We know Toronto FC did, as they became the first team in MLS to clinch a playoff spot after a 1-0 win against FC Cincinnati on Sunday. My name is Mitchell Tierney, and this week on the show, we'll talk narrow victories, close calls, and of course, injuries, plus plenty more. Joining us later on in the show, Waking the Red writer Benedict Rhodes will be by to give us an update on a number of the team's top prospects as they play out their season across the globes. Wherever you're watching, feel free to interact with us, Facebook, YouTube. We can get all the comments here in our fancy new digs, and we'll bring them up on screen and try and answer your questions as best we can. But first, boys, the X, Toronto FC's got it next to their name now, and you know it's kind of wild considering this disjointed season. I don't know if I ever would have thought Toronto FC would be the first team to clinch a playoff spot, but here we are, and I mean, you know, it's just exciting from here, isn't it? We'll start with you, Jeff, I guess.
Can I admit that I just got why WTR's Twitter account has an X in front of Waking the Red all of a sudden?
Probably shouldn't have.
But I was gonna ask about that, but now I finally get it, which is a point for me. Yay! News to report, guys. I don't know if you saw, but we are number one in the power rankings again.
There you go. I mean, that probably makes sense. You know, you first team to clinch playoff spots. What is it? 51% now, according to 538, that they will win the Supporters Shield. So everything coming up Toronto FC right now.
Are we going right into that? Because I've actually got it as an image saved. We've got 51% Supporters Shield chances. Seattle's in second at 18%. These are the updated 538 projections. And then the MLS Cup chances are where it gets interesting. Seattle's at 15. Guess where TFC is in second place?
14.
Yeah, it was one below.
14%. That's
I was literally just working on that article.
those are some damn good odds, gentlemen. That is a nice place to be sitting.
Hey, yeah, I mean, come on, they're still disrespecting us. They still have Seattle at 15%, TFC at 14%. Come on.
It's 1%. I'll take it. There's still a month left to go.
Yeah, certainly. I think
they do hold that edge in that series. Yeah, go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, well, that's a good point as well. And also, you know, if we're looking at statistical models, and I think this might be the big takeaway stat from this week, other than obviously the big 51% that we mentioned, Martin Bailey's, you know, the difference between 2017 and this current season. Toronto FC won 20 games in 2017, 5 of them by 1 goal. Fast forward to 2020, they've won 9 of their 11 games by 1 goal. It's an interesting thing to look at because, you know, if you're looking at a statistical model, usually they've always said that teams who win games by 1 goal are generally pretty lucky. What do you think of that? And Toronto FC, you know, especially this week, I mean, they had 2 games where 1-0 wins, and there were some moments there where it was pretty touch and go. They were definitely the better side and full value for the points of both those games, but they've kept it close a lot this season, haven't they?
Yeah, we talked about, I guess, a little bit how TFC are a little unfortunate because they dropped points this season to DC United late in games. Obviously, San Jose, just thinking back all the way, Vancouver as well. But on the flip side, they've also stolen some points away from some teams, haven't they? I mean, we think about New York City FC when they come down, they're sort of being dominated in that match, and then all of a sudden, Justin Morrow kicks a ball into the box, gets a handball, and TFC walk away 3 points against New York City FC. And then you touched on these 2 recent performances where, you know, VAR played a factor, the referee's whistle played a factor, and TFC came out on the winning end, I guess. Let's call it on some of those calls and some of those, I guess, a penalty that goes over the bar there against New England. So I guess we can look at it a glass half full. Usually TFC are on the opposite side of things where they're kind of, you know, they're the ones dropping points, but now they're picking up these points. So it's great to see, and you know, it's crucial for when they're trying to make this push for the Supporters Shield.
I will say, you know, you look at surfaces in MLS. Are there 2 worse surfaces to play on than New England and Cincinnati? I mean, you look at the passing. There was a couple of balls where they tried to play it out wide to Jayden Nelson against Cincinnati, and the way it skipped off the pitch, you're like, oh, that is ugly. You know, we saw some players cramping up. We saw a number of things from Toronto FC, and still they were able to get 2 results. Again, New England, one of those places where they've traditionally struggled heavily to get out of there both healthy and with any points. And, again, touch and go in some moments, but they were able to get the 3 points, and that, that's really what matters.
Yeah, I mean, you wrote on the rundown, winning close games is the mark of a good team or a lucky team. I don't necessarily think good and luck are mutually exclusive, but I mean, heart of a champion, these 1-0 wins are what championships are made out of. So I'm never going to turn away a grinding 1-0 win. Absolutely. I mean, our Slack chat was chock-a-block with people saying, well, why can't we have one blowout as a treat? Because it's been tough watching these grindy games. But aside from that little bit of existential nightmare at the end there, which we were lucky to get away from, that was a pretty good game. Pretty good game. I take umbrage with Callan on WTR calling it a clinical performance, because I don't know if it was, but it was certainly a win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It was a win. I don't know if I'd even go as far as calling it a good game. It was a game. I'll say that. It was a game. And two teams played football. And, obviously TFC came around with that 3 points, and that's what's important here. But there are still some question marks in this side. Can this team really hang with the best of them? We saw, against Columbus, they had that great second half. But what happened in the first half when they were, dominated? Which TFC are we going to get against those top teams? Philadelphia, great for them. They deserve that win, and they came with those 3 points. And we're going to see them again this season. But they're not out of the woods yet, is what I'm trying to say. So they're going to have some pretty sizable tests, I guess, to overcome if they do want to see out the Supporter Shield.
Yeah, I agree with that certainly. I did want to talk about the two calls, because I think they are pretty big in terms of the week for Toronto FC. The Io Akinola shove, I guess you can call it, on Andrew Farrell being one of them, and massive, obviously, in their win over New England, and then that late penalty that got rescinded by VAR against FC Cincinnati. I think I agree with the end result for both calls. I mean, it's interesting. The two things that stood out to me on both calls, the one was the way the New England players reacted when they saw Farrell go down, especially Farrell's reaction. He doesn't react like a player who's gotten fouled. He reacts like a player who messed up. And so do most of the other trailing defenders. We all know what Bruce Arena had to say about the call throughout the broadcast. And speaking of the broadcast, what I really liked in the Omar Gonzalez one was we were able to hear everything he was saying to the referee, him saying he's never getting there ever, which I think is the point on the Cincinnati thing. He does cut across Gonzalez, but he's nowhere near that ball. And I think he goes down knowing that he has no chance of winning that header. And that for me is why I think they got those two calls right. I don't know if you guys have any other insight on that.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Farrell was Keystone Cops there, and a lucky bounce, and it landed right in Io's stride. And if that's a foul, then there's a lot of more fouls getting called. But even more to that point, I think that was a serious dive on OG, and I'm glad that the penalty call got rescinded, because he was looking for a touch, and he went down like a sack of leaves or whatever
Io Akinola just been raking a bunch.
Yeah,
not really. No. But I've seen a lot.
Io Akinola is getting that respect in MLS, I think, from the referee, even because he does walk around with that stature. He does play that sort of big man's game, and when you do play that game, and you find that balance between crossing the line and getting on the ref's bad side, I guess, and playing within the rules of the game. And I think Akinola does a perfect job of that. He's a great mentor, and then Josie Altidore as well. So when you do see two guys go at it and especially in a 50-50 challenge, and it's a bigger guy knocking down maybe but a strong defender still, oftentimes you're going to see that the referee bite his whistle just because of the size factor, and that size should be an advantage to that bigger player. And I thought Io Akinola does a really, really, really good job of that. So credit to him on that goal. On that Omar Gonzalez play, yeah, that's a dive for sure. I know they were saying on the broadcast Omar Gonzalez's arms were on him, so they couldn't have definitive evidence to overturn that call. I mean, isn't that what VAR is here for? If it's clear that it's a dive, come on, get that nonsense off the field. So good on the referee for getting that call right, getting that checked, and TFC again will come out on the positive end there.
I think that's a great point on Io Akinola, the strength thing. Just because, if you see a guy like Pablo Piatti win that exact same 50-50, you just assume he's somewhere in the equation fouled the defender. But if it's a guy like Io who, has those physical attributes and is able to win those 50-50 battles, then, there's more of an assumption that maybe he was able to do it cleanly. And again, the run by Io Akinola on that play, I mean, there's so much positive throughout that play, the little flick in the midfield by Jonathan Osorio to open up space. And we've talked at length about how well he's been able to do that. The ball by Pozuelo, of course, but also the run across the defender. I think Christian Jack highlighted it very nicely on TSN. Those are the kind of runs that Io Akinola has been making recently. And, again, just such a smart player. And he's been showing that consistently of late. Again, for such a young player, it's been quite impressive.
Sorry, just before you go on that, I wrote about that a little bit last week, and one of the points I really want to emphasize there is that he's predictable. When, for instance, this isn't a knock on Josie at all, but just the difference sort of this year I've seen in 2020. When Josie's on the ball, or when Pozuelo's on the ball, he gets his head up, and when Io's on the field, he gets his head up and he knows Io's making that run in behind. He's very predictable. Io Akinola plays on the edge of the shoulder defender, and he tries to get in behind because of his speed. Josie Altidore mixes his game up. He comes short sometimes. Sometimes he'll turn the defender, go long, and then, he'll be frustrated after not getting that one pass. I think for Pozuelo, as a quarterback of a team, it's really easy for him to know when his player's making that run and where. It's almost like Sebastian Giovinco and Josie. I wrote this. It's Sebastian Giovinco, Josie Altidore-esque, where as soon as Seba picks up the ball, he knows Josie was gone and back in the day, and vice versa. So to have that chemistry, I think, goes a long way, and I think we're seeing the end product of that.
Yeah, no, certainly. I did want to talk injuries a little bit because there were a couple more for Toronto FC, or at least some updates this week. Probably the biggest one. I mean, there were a number, but Alex Bono getting hurt in training. We know how well he's done, and obviously getting another win this week and some big saves against New England. And whatever he did to distract the penalty shooter, we'll give him some credit for that as well. But I mean,
that was a gruesome one I heard.
He did, against the right way. Yeah, apparently bone coming out of the finger, which you never love to see. But
okay, explain to me this. His bone's gonna pop out of his hand, out of his skin. Yeah, and you're telling me he's gonna go stand back in net in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, come on, is that not different?
Well, it's
not just standard for a keeper. Greg Vanney said he joked after the press conference that he doesn't know any professional goalkeeper whose fingers are straight. So, but I guess getting back to Bono and your original point there is that he was playing so well, and it's tough to see him go down like this. I wrote on a post this morning that it might be the end of his season here because of this injury. TFC have 3.5 weeks left. It's 2 to 3 week injury that leaves him one game before the playoffs. And is he going to get in that last regular season game? Potentially, but he also might not. So this actually could be the end of Bono's season, barring an injury.
Maybe Bono can go old school Wolverine and just save balls with like the bone sticking out of his knuckles there.
I mean, how important is your pinky finger anyway as a keeper, right? Like, it should be there, obviously, but I don't know if it's the be all and end all, right?
I mean, I would assume, I don't know. I think it's probably pretty important. And you don't want pain when you're saving balls, and that split second of like, ooh, I don't want this to hurt. Probably is not great for goalkeepers. But I think the probably the best news this week. What's the injury update on Richie Layrea? We know he came off holding his hamstring, Michael.
So yeah, I asked Greg Vanney that after last match, and apparently it was just cramp from Richie, which is obviously a positive sign because Richie going down right now, especially with Justin Morrow already down, that's the last thing Toronto FC needs. So hopefully it's nothing. We've heard from this team before that, I'll go back to Justin Morrow's injury that, he's fine. It's nothing. The next thing you know, someone's out 3 weeks. So we're speaking to Vanney again later today, and hopefully we'll get a further update on Layrea there.
Speaking about Richie Layrea and Pozuelo, of course, the MLS Team of the Week. Oh wait, no, it's Eric Zavaleta and Patrick Mullins included in this week's team. Again, showing off Toronto FC's depth, and I did want to talk about Zavaleta briefly because, as we all know, he gets a lot of criticism, but that's what Toronto FC's just been needing for basically the whole season, is a performance like that where one of their bench defenders is able to step in and have a solid enough performance to secure them a result, and really to not be incredibly worried about him. And I know it's against Cincinnati, which again is the caveat here, but that was just a solid enough performance. And if they can get that from Zavaleta, one or two more times throughout this season, then that could be the difference maker in a Supporters Shield race.
Absolutely. I thought he was excellent on the night.
Mm-hmm. And not just Zavaleta. Well, a credit to him again. He was terrific. But I'll go back even a game before, and Lawrence Simon was fantastic for me when he was when he stepped in there beside Chris Mavinga, and they walked away with 3 points there too. And obviously Zavaleta is the one who gets honored with the Team of the Week accolade. And I don't know kind of how that works and who votes on that, but great for them for recognizing Eric Zavaleta, because we've been the first one, to kind of rag on him a little bit. But it's great to see. And you said it's exactly what TFC need. If TFC have 4 center backs who are able to, consistently step in, and we've been kind of highlighting that as their biggest question mark moving forward here. That's what position isn't this team deep at, right? Can you guys think of a weakness on the squad besides, perhaps the center back depth now?
Cam Winger.
Maybe,
we should talk about that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just throwing it out there. I don't want to speak about it in any detail. We'll see. There's plenty of games left. Our Tam Winger situation. Yeah,
for those of you who don't get what Jeff's referring to here, of course, has to be Erickson Gallardo, who has who's just, I don't even know. He's not able to find himself in a match where Toronto FC makes 7 subs, 7 changes to the starting lineup. He's on the bench again, and still, even during the match, he doesn't find a way to come on. He like Jeff said, he's one of your TAM wingers, even though we've discussed that he might not. He arguably shouldn't be viewed as a TAM winger, but still, he's one of your young guns. TFC were raving about him prior to the start of the season, and he's kind of just fallen off a cliff here. Where in the world is Erickson Gallardo? Do you guys have an answer for me?
On the bench?
Yeah.
Enjoying some tasty hotel food in Hartford.
Is that like the end all be all for Erickson Gallardo here?
I don't like if you're not playing against Cincinnati, like the closer you get to the playoffs, the more lineup consistency you'd want. And even, if you're going to rotate your lineup, you want the guys who potentially might be coming off the bench in the MLS Cup playoffs to get some minutes and get some opportunities. And based on what we've seen all year, Erickson Gallardo not going to be one of those guys. So, if we don't see him this week, I don't think we're seeing him, barring some wild injuries. I don't think we're seeing him again this year. And that, that is disappointing because, again, as you said, he came in with a lot of expectations, or, especially considering Toronto FC's deficiencies in that position throughout the past couple of years. But yeah, it just really hasn't worked out. And it's surprising how little opportunity they've given him. I guess I'll say that.
It's really surprising to me because there have been a couple times this season where Greg Vanney's kind of been asked about Gallardo. Obviously, the start of the year, he was absolutely raving about him. I couldn't tell you how much TFC brass were talking about Gallardo. And then after the pandemic, he was kind of brought up again. And Vanney said again, he's doing really well in training. And if he keeps this up, obviously he's going to get some minutes. And, we'll see, he needs some consistent playing time, so-and-so. And then he comes on for, I think, one performance. I want to say it was against Montreal, maybe at BMO Field there in the loss. And he doesn't have the best showing. And I think after that, it's out the window there for Gallardo. And it could be because TFC have such a short season and the Supporters Shield race, but I don't think the leash is very long on him anymore. And I personally still don't think he's put into an optimal position for him to succeed. I don't think he fits this Toronto FC formation very well. I don't think he fits the way Greg Vanney wants to play very well. So I don't know. I don't know what the solution is here, and I'm hoping, because I do think there's a goal scoring threat in Erickson Gallardo. I think he has the ability to really go out there and bang, maybe even 10 goals in a season. It's just disappointing. It's frustrating for me. But on the flip side, whose spot is he taking in the lineup? Because you have so many TFC players who are performing really well. You have youngsters like Jayden Nelson who are coming in and getting 60 minutes. So it's a really competitive squad, and he's one of the people who haven't been able to break through.
Let's maybe talk about Nelson briefly, because that's another sign maybe that Gallardo isn't in the long-term plans. You've got you've got Jayden Nelson taking those minutes as a young player instead, and obviously this is a guy that Toronto FC want to integrate into the side, and hopefully will be playing for them for many years to come. Pretty impressed with Nelson in the last game. I mean, there's certainly things that we can talk about that I'd like to see more from him, but I thought it was, his most, again, he's had two performances for TFC, but he looked a lot more professional and competent than the last time.
Yeah, especially in the first 10 minutes, they were trying everything through his side on the attack in the first 10 minutes. He's fearless in those 1v1 battles. It's something. It's really something nice to see. And once his confidence gets up, and once he's more comfortable with the pace of MLS play, because I think that he's just a little bit too slow with his reads on plays. He's gonna be something else. He really is. All the tools are there. There's nothing in his skill set that suggests that he's not going to be a quality winger threat in the MLS.
Yeah, I thought he was solid. There were times I wanted a little bit more out of him. There were times where I thought he was trying to do too much, but again, it's all a learning process for this kid. And I just hearing the Toronto FC, some players talk about him and some of the staff talk about him, I feel like this kid is just absolutely tearing up training, and he's doing different things in training. I feel like he's one of the more special players in Toronto FC training. He could be one of the more dominant players in Toronto FC training. And it's just a matter of translating that now into a game environment, into a professional environment. And that's just going to take time. And I mentioned this a couple times, but how good is this kid going to be in 2 years? If he gets a full season under his belt, how good is this kid going to be? Because you think about the likes of, and this again isn't a knock on them, but think about the likes of Jacob Schaffelberg coming down that wing, and Tsubasa Endo coming down that wing. Those guys have nothing on what Jayden Nelson possesses in terms of talent, in terms of skill. So we've seen how much those guys have sort of grown in such a short period of time. And these are Nelson's kind of pivotal years ahead of him. I feel like players grow the most during like an 18 to kind of 24, the 24, kind of that age. And I think we're just starting to see like the tip of the iceberg of how good this kid can be, because I really think the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, again, as you kind of mentioned, maybe the one criticism of his game there is, and it's obviously finding a balance, but I thought he was just a little too safe sometimes. I would have liked to see him maybe attack more aggressively at times. And we saw the biggest key for the biggest point for me on that was the second we saw that he was probably going to come off and he realized, they're getting ready to sub me off. We saw him just go at the back line. He almost beat the entire team. And there was a couple of runs like that. And that's where you really saw like what this guy possessed. He was trying to make like a good last impression. And, the more he does that, and obviously it's 50-50, right? Like you want the player to do that when he's in a good position to do it, not every time. Because that's an issue with so many youth players is, they've been able to destroy guys one-on-one at their own age level for so long that they come in and try to do that too much. But, he has the skill to beat MLS defenders, to beat almost, any kind of defender 1v1. So the more he tries that, I think the better for it Toronto FC and certainly Jayden Nelson are going to be.
And he just turned 18. He just turned 18.
Before we move on, Will Dunn, friend of all of us, wrote, "Good game by Zavs, but we can't forget Cincy has only scored 8 goals. Maybe a good confidence booster." We're sort of circling back. I'm not really interested in that question. I want to know how long it took everybody to actually pick out Nick Hagelin, because his new hairstyle made it difficult to notice him. I had to do like three triple takes before I realized that was Nick Haggs. He was growing a bit of a Patrick Mullins kind of flow going on.
Yeah, shout out, hey, whatever works. It's kind of like Mitch's hair right there.
Yeah,
I'll take that. Yeah, no, good to see Hagelin back on the field. Certainly, we know what him and his family unfortunately had to go through with COVID-19, and as I'm sure we can all say, one of the best guys off the field, on the field, just awesome guy to play for Toronto FC. So we wish him nothing but the best.
He's one of our own for sure.
Every time we conceded a corner kick to Cincy, I got nervous. I got hives.
Yeah. Sounds like Benedict's actually here, so we'll bring him on whenever he's ready. Talk a number of Toronto FC prospects. I think this is a good time certainly to have this discussion, because we're seeing a lot of Toronto FC players out on loan, be that in Europe, be that in North America as well. So we'll get some insight from Benedict on them as someone who's covered Toronto FC 2 a lot. And, speaking of hair, Benedict, wow.
Come on.
Quarantine hair going.
Oh,
let's go.
We love to see that.
Top shelf stuff. You can't teach
10 out of 10.
You can't teach that.
No.
Benny, you're the TFC II expert, and so we needed to have you on here just because it's such an exciting time for Toronto FC and Canada soccer in general. There's so many up and coming young talent, young guns we call them, coming through the ranks, and we saw Jayden Nelson there a little bit. Can you kind of just talk about Nelson to start and what you saw out of his performance, and what can TFC fans really expect out of the now 18-year-old and Canadian International Player of the Year?
Yeah, I think Mitch used the word playing a bit safe, maybe. I think that's probably a fair way of putting it. I thought maybe he looked maybe a bit shy, maybe is another word to put it. Because when he was on his game, he's, like Mitch said, capable of beating any MLS defender. And I think he just needs to sort of realize that maybe. I think he was trying to hold himself back a little bit maybe. But I think if he wants to, and he's obviously capable of it, I think he is able to sort of go down that wing and beat defenders.
Yeah, certainly. I wanted to talk to you a little bit, as someone who covered Toronto FC extensively, or Toronto FC 2, both extensively, but Toronto FC 2 in particular for this conversation. The fact that they didn't have a season this year, I wrote on it a little bit there, and my thoughts on how in some ways it's a bit of a positive, because it's forced Toronto FC to really consider loan options for these young guys. And I think that's something they haven't done enough of. It's not an easy thing, certainly, to find a good loan fit for players, and that's part of it. But how have you thought they've done in terms of, especially for their top guys who really need minutes right now, finding good loan opportunities for them where they will get those minutes and they'll get them in maybe different environments than they're used to in Toronto?
Yeah, I think looking at some of the top guys who are at the moment, like Jordan Perruzza's in the USL Championship. Julian Dunn had a brilliant season in the Canadian Premier League. Rocco, Romeo, and Noble Okello are doing well over in Denmark. So I think TFC 2 and Toronto FC together have done a pretty good job of getting some of their top guys minutes. Obviously, Jayden Nelson now starting to get some minutes with the big team. So I think for the most part, they've done a pretty good job. Obviously, there's some guys who are probably just sitting in Toronto at the moment, not really
like who
time. But I think
give me some names, man.
Getting as many as they can out.
Give me some names. I want some of those names. Who are the guys that are sitting back in Toronto, not getting some of the spotlight right now?
The guys who were in the Canadian Premier League are back now. They're not getting any minutes. So Robert Boscovich and Dante Campbell, for example, are two of them. Then you look at people like Jordan Faria, Luca Petrasso, Luca Acello as well. Like some of these midfielders, especially TFC and TFC 2 have a lot of midfielders, and it's getting possible to get them all playing time at the moment, I think. So they haven't managed to get a few of them out, but like Noble Okello, I think, is the one they want to get the most minutes, or they're prioritized getting him into another environment. Right. But yeah.
Yeah, so the reason we kind of brought Ben on, and there isn't really anyone out there that knows TFC 2 like Benedict Rhodes does.
Zero.
And he's been on the beat for that team, and there aren't many people that are on the Toronto FC beat, let alone the Toronto FC 2 beat. So he's has the most experience that I know watching some of these guys grow and develop. So it's great to have Ben on here and talk about these guys. And another one of these guys who are kind of in the spotlight right now, and this kind of because Alex Bono went down with an injury, and he found his way onto the Toronto FC, I guess, match day squad for the first time in his career. That's 22-year-old goalkeeper Kevin Silva, who Toronto FC just signed this year as their third, goalkeeper. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about him? And I guess, is there a prospect that we potentially see him, make an appearance down the line here?
Yeah, I think we probably will see him get at least one game in down the stretch here. I think there's a few games in a row for Toronto FC. I think they're already planning on doing that sort of platoon role with Alex Bono and Quentin Westberg. So I don't imagine that'll change. And as for a bit of background on Silva, he's a bit like Alex Bono in the sense where he can sort of pull a flashy save out of almost nowhere. Like you wouldn't expect him to maybe make a save, and then he kind of saves the day for TFC 2 last year or TFC in Bono's case. I think the thing that stands out most for Silva is his communication. He's very, very vocal. Might have helped because they're playing at the training ground. Maybe we could just notice him more. But he was directing guys in the midfield and up at front, attacking the other end of the pitch, and they were listening to him. So he's obviously a vocal leader, and I think that's something that Toronto FC could use to their advantage.
I think that's an important thing for a young keeper as well. It's something that always stood out to me with Thomas Hassal breaking in with the Whitecaps sometimes you see young keepers and they're just kind of quiet and they'll let the veteran center back do the directing. But Hassal's one of those guys who will, let you know if you're out of position. And if you're in the Vancouver Whitecaps backline, you are often out of position. But the one thing I wanted to ask about Silva is how's he with his feet? Because obviously we know how much Greg Vanney, keys in on that.
He's pretty good with his feet. I think one criticism of the two Toronto FC goalies this season has been that they maybe haven't been as good with their feet. I'm not sure if Silva's a huge upgrade on that front, but he definitely had his moments last year where I think at one point he dribbled around an attacker trying to take the ball off him, and he just did a trick around him and cleared the ball down the field. So he is good with his feet. I just don't know if he's necessarily an upgrade, but he is MLS quality, I think, with the ball at his feet.
Neil Davison actually had a great piece on Silva. I believe it was Neil. Apologies if I'm wrong about that, but he mentioned that Silva was a striker until about, I think, the age of 12 or 13, and he transitioned to a keeper then. So I believe playing with his feet could be one of his strengths moving forward here, and obviously having someone like Q to learn that kind of the aspect of the game off of it's that's second to none. And hopefully maybe that is a reason why TFC love this kid, and they are really high on him from what I've heard.
Awesome. Who else are they high on? Ben, who do you have your eyes on as the next young gun to make the jump to the first team? If you had to choose one.
Well, I think a lot of the young guns who are sort of currently on the radar for maybe next season are the ones already signed to first team deals. The one that stands out to me is Julian Dunn, I think. If it wasn't for Mo Farsi, I think Julian Dunn would probably be winning the U21 Canadian Player of the Year in the Canadian Premier League this year. He was that good for Valor FC, and I think he could probably play in Toronto FC now. I think he's maybe the third or fourth player on that depth chart for Toronto FC right now.
Did he not win that award? Sorry, did he not win that award?
Hasn't been announced yet.
It hasn't been announced yet. Okay, when are the CPL awards?
Couldn't tell you.
No idea. All right, well, guys, Google it. Anyways, keep going, Ben.
And in the same regard as Dunn, I think Rocco Romeo is also up there. I think Dunn might be the one more ready, as he also already has a bit of MLS experience, although it was those games where they rotated the whole squad and got destroyed by Houston, I think it was. I think Dunn and Romeo were good together for TFC II as well last year. So I imagine that might be the partnership of the future, and getting some of these young guys to sort of push the vets a bit can only be good for everyone.
Awesome.
What about Jordan Perruzza? Because we've seen, what he's been able to do at USL Championship level. Toronto FC's striker situation's pretty interesting right now. Certainly Io's emergence makes it better than it could have been, but we don't know what's going to happen with Josie going forward after picking up another injury. Where does Prusa fit in? Because he he seems to be a player that everywhere he goes, he scores a lot of goals, and I've seen a lot of things I liked from him down in Championship this year.
He was really good last year, and he seems to have been doing quite well down with, I think, San Antonio in the USL Championship. Again, I think he's someone who maybe won't play a ton of minutes next season, but I think he's definitely a contender for it, and I imagine he'll see a lot of time in preseason. I think he could probably, again, fit third or fourth on the TFC depth chart up top. Maybe, I don't know if he'll take minutes off Patrick Mullins just yet, just because Patrick Mullins is sort of a
My hero.
veteran, but I imagine
Team of the week, Patrick Mullins.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I think Prusa is definitely good enough. He's physical, he's quick, he can finish with both feet, with his head. There's a lot to like about Jordan Perruzza.
Yeah, every time I watch that kid, I get so excited. The goals that he's scoring, it looks like he can make an impact in Major League Soccer right now.
Yeah, absolute screamers. Just bangers.
Absolute screamers. And it was pivotal for the club to, make sure that they get him on loan, out on loan, to make sure he does get that playing time, because they are so high on this kid, and his development path it keeps going up and up and up, and it's great to see. Another thing we sort of wanted to discuss is, Mitch sort of touched on this earlier, is Toronto FC is getting to the point now where, are they going to become a sellers club? You're seeing so many of these prospects coming through, and we'll even talk about Ayo Akinola, Richie Layrea, just the top guys. Are they going to start selling some of these guys out and then bringing in, replenishing their foundation with some of these youth guys?
Can I interject? I mean, Ben
Please.
gets all the DMs. Ben gets all the DMs, so he's the first one that will tell us what's going on with Al Hilal's pursuit of Bozillo. In addition, but yeah, no, I just wanted to get a Bozillo shout in there.
Yeah, I can definitely see some of these TFC II guys either jumping into the first team or maybe even being sold before they get to that point. And Perusa had interest from Italy, I believe, and I think I'm blanking on his name, but they already sold someone, or someone left to Europe, and maybe Rocco Romeo as well as having a good time in Denmark. He might be someone of interest for clubs overseas, or maybe even other MLS teams if he doesn't get the playing time he wants. But that's obviously not an issue at the moment, but could be down the road.
Ben, we just sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I saw a pause. We have a question from Will Dunn, and I think it's actually an interesting one. With the TFC/MLSE coffers, do they even really care about selling players? That's an interesting shout.
I personally can't really speak to that. I'm not really sure about that, but I'll have to ask Bill Manning that.
Yeah, no, that is an interesting one, certainly, and I think they should. I think they should.
Yeah, I mean,
it just makes economic sense. I mean, that's the way soccer works. Should they prioritize that? No, certainly not. That this is a club that has all the money, has all the prestige, has all the ability to win. But if there's an opportunity here, especially we've mentioned Layrea, Akinola, those might be some guys that European clubs are interested in. If there's a big bid that comes flying in for one of those players, you should always consider it, because in a salary cap league and in any sort of league, if you can sell on players and make money that way, that can make all the difference, and that could mean the next guy you bring in, is covered for financially, and you can just add that to your spending. So I do think Toronto FC should consider it. Obviously, it's not priority number one for this club. It's I don't know if they become a sellers club per se, but I do think, especially and for the growth of Canadian players, not every Toronto FC player is going to make the first team. So if they can start selling on some of the guys who maybe aren't going to fit in but are still very good players, then I think that's something they need to start doing more of.
Yeah, 2 points to that, Mitch, is the one, it's still business. Like, this is still a lot of money, like an incredible amount of money we're talking about, and it makes a huge difference, especially when we're navigating through the challenges of the global pandemic. And the second point really is from the player's perspective. You think about Ayo Akinola, you think about Richie Layrea, and you think about some of these youngsters. what's their ultimate goal? Do you think it's to play the rest of their career in Toronto at 18 years old? I know for a fact it's not. These kids want to go to Europe, and it's their dream to go to Europe. And TFC have to have that bridge to get them there because there's such an opportunity here, and there's such a pool of Canadian talent. And TFC have to find that balance of being that middle ground of succeeding, but still being able to replenish their talents by selling players and getting players into the squad.
Yeah, well, TFC and MLSE can't be too big for their britches, but in terms of where they fit in the global soccer landscape, and I think it's important to remember that and to take advantage of those opportunities when they arise. Holding on to your star players for a career in soccer are not exactly the best bedfellows. So to have that attitude, despite the fact that MLSE can afford to strong arm players into staying forever, it's not the soccer way.
Yeah, I think it's critical for recruitment too, because if you're a top young guy and now you see, especially recently, that there are opportunities over in Europe, you want to, if you're going to sign on with Toronto FC and you have those aspirations, which I think you should, if you're a guy like Io or even Richie, you should have those aspirations to want to keep pushing yourself to that next level. If Toronto FC can show that they can find guys, opportunities over in Europe and good positions and be a bridge that way, I mean, that's where MLS is succeeding most right now, I think, is finding that young talent and then showing that they can sell them on. So, I think Toronto FC would do well to become part of that. And I think that is part of what they're trying to do right now with a number of these young players, and why they've signed a lot of these guys to first team deals is they want to, have their name stamped on the careers of some of these guys that they have brought up and developed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess, Benny, before we let you go, just quickly, your thoughts on I guess where Toronto FC's academy structure is right now, and how much development we've seen from the early days and them trying to put this together to now, where it does seem like they're producing too many players for the first team, and that's can only be a positive thing, right? Because now you have options, and now you have that opportunity to send players elsewhere.
Yeah, like you said, it can only be a good thing. I do wonder though, this is opening a whole nother barrel here, but you see players like Ija Howley, I think his name is, going from TFC Academy to York 9 because he didn't maybe think he was going to break through at Toronto FC, but knowing he'll get the playing time at York 9. So I do wonder if Toronto FC don't start giving more of these academy guys minutes, will players maybe look to go to other academies or other teams? But at the same time, it can only be good for Toronto FC to have such a wealth of young talent, and I imagine they're pretty happy with it. But at the same time, I said there has to be a balance, right? Like, there's so many players, like Liam Fraser, for example, like who's been on the first team for a while now, but just can't buy the minutes because how deep TFC is. Also injuries and stuff as well. But I think overall, I think Toronto FC must be pretty happy with where their academy is at the moment, and I'm hoping Toronto FC 2 can start sort of keep being that breeding ground for young talent.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Long may it continue. Absolutely.
This has always been the case though. With this isn't new that Toronto FC are having players leave their academy because they don't believe it's the right path for them. This will always go on in football, and in 10 years and 15, this will continue to happen. But I think what's really cool right now is we're at the point where we're talking about these guys leaving the academy because Canada soccer is that deep, and it's just a testament to how far we've come as in such a period of time. I don't want to say short now because it's been like 15 years now, and I want to see some tangible production. So it's just again a great testament to where Canada soccer is right now.
Yeah, it used to be players were leaving Toronto FC Academy for like, I don't know, University of Michigan or something, which like no shots at that. I mean, that NCAA has its role in the development pathway in North America, but like now they're leaving it for Bundesliga sides or other professional environments within Canada. So that's a massive difference, and I think that's a good point from you, Michael. We are at 1:00 here though, so we will wrap things up. Benedict, thanks so much for joining us
Benny.
and giving
Thanks,
us
Benny.
your unique insight on all things Toronto FC2.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah, and thanks so much everyone for listening and interacting. We've really been enjoying all the Facebook comments popping up on the side and how we can integrate those into the discussion. Thanks again, of course, to Benedict for joining us, Michael and Jeff. Good stuff as always, and see you all again next Tuesday.
Cheers, guys.